This is a newspaper page from October 2018, and it shows the faces of some creatures who were convicted of having, it's called a grooming gang here, I call it a slaving gang, who raped and abused girls as young as 11 in Huddersfield. This was 2018. I'm going to be talking about these. It's not a nice subject, as they used to say on television years ago. This may not be suitable for people of a nervous disposition. I'm Graniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. This here is from 2023, December 2023. And here we have a little narrative you might find unpleasant.
Individual family stories. One of the very first was from a grandfather who rang from Rotherham, who wanted to talk about his granddaughter. 1 month after her 13th birthday, she'd gone to school and then gone missing, and the school had rung her mum, who'd immediately rung the police, who'd said, "Don't worry, love, she'll turn up as soon as she gets hungry." She didn't turn up that afternoon, that evening, and at 2:30 in the morning, the next morning, a woman on the other side of Rotherham had picked up the phone and dialed 999 because she'd heard a young girl screaming in the house next door. Police had gone round to the house. They found this 13-year-old girl with another young girl. She was almost completely naked, she was blind drunk, and she was with 7 adult Pakistani men. She was drunk and leery. And South Yorkshire Police arrested the 13-year-old girl for being drunk and disorderly. They took her back to the station, put her in the cells, eventually charged her, and she was convicted. They didn't even question the men as to why they were in a house with a 13-year-old girl who was nearly naked in the early hours of the morning.
Now, if this girl was convicted, it means she turned up in court. So you have this 13-year-old girl being produced in front of a judge or a magistrate. The circumstances would have been explained to the magistrate, and the magistrate apparently didn't ask the police, where are the men? This is an underage girl. Adult men, underage girl, they were committing a crime however drunk she was. And you have to ask, why didn't the magistrate ask that question? And why didn't the police arrest the men? Now, frequently people say, well, it's because the police were afraid of being called Islamophobic or racist or something. No, the proof is right there. The men were committing a crime. Well, it's supposed to be a crime in the statute books throughout the United Kingdom anyway. They had the evidence right there in front of them, and they weren't using it. This has nothing to do with racism, Islamophobia or anything else. And the magistrate...
Individual family stories.
Just all the bits of the net that were supposed to catch the right people, it just went straight through the holes in the net. And you have to wonder, what was going on? Right, so we've had a case from 2018. This is a case from talking about in 2023. So this is something that's been known about for years. It's been known about for about 25 years actually, but come to the public attention at least since, 2015. And yet it's still turning up. That means the police are still arresting girls and letting their abusers go. It's still happening. And you have to, again, you have to ask why. I'm going to read that later. Now, this, I have mentioned this before, this particular instance, where a father went round to try and rescue his daughter, and then he got arrested. The subtitles aren't that accurate. They didn't understand his northern accent. So I might stop to just correct a couple of words here and there.
To say where Elizabeth was. So I come across, because I lived on next estate, I come across, banged on door, I saw a movement in curtain, then within probably 5 minutes a police car arrived. They asked me what I was doing, I told them, they arrested me and took me back to where I lived, and then they arrested me. So obviously I'm...
Right, this de-arrested thing was a new one on me, but what happens is, when the police arrest you and then de-arrest you, it means you've done nothing wrong, but the police want to move you away from somewhere, from some sort of thing. So actually the police are using powers which I suspect are beyond their remit, because if you haven't done anything wrong, then they shouldn't be arresting you. So they've developed this habit. The police have turned into a sort of machine for controlling people instead of for dealing with crime. Well, obviously there was a crime going on there and they weren't interested. Let's carry on.
Sat in house again, and I was getting more and more frustrated. So I come back over to the flat.
Well, an hour later or something, was it?
It was about 20 minutes.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So it seemed within minutes, a van pulled up this time, and I think there were 2 or 3 officers. They arrested me, took me down to the police station.
Okay, he said not de-arrested there. He said they arrested me and took him down to the police station.
They arrested me, took me down to the police station. Took me in police station. They didn't take me to where they usually charge people and that. They took me straight through into a room.
They took me straight through into a room. That was it.
Through into a room near cells. So I'm in there. About half an hour later, they come and got me. Come on, you're going. I went, what do you mean? Just follow me, they said. So I followed them, and they took me through officers and out from where police station is, where public going. And they warned me if I come back to the flat, I'd be arrested for stalking. Because stalking laws had just come in then, serious ones. So they let me go.
But what happens if you say, like, my daughter's in there, I want my daughter out? Yeah. What do they say to you? She isn't in there, or she wants to stay in there, or what do they say to you?
It was what they were saying to me, it was what they were threatening me with. You know what I mean? They wouldn't answer me questions. Why wouldn't they get her out? Why wouldn't they let me get her out then if they don't want to do it? And I just kept coming back all the time. Look, you're targeting people because of the race. I said, I'm not at all. It's because of what they're doing. These are grown men.
Right, I suppose you heard that. The police said to him he'd be arrested for stalking if he went back, that he was targeting people because of their race, and that was it. The police were, well, I don't know about happy to let that go. It looks like they were colluding in this. Now, I do not understand how grown police officers, whatever the orders they had, could have allowed this to happen and could have insisted on removing this man from a place where his daughter was in the company of men much older than herself. I mean, at 13 years old, you would imagine that any legal, in the West, any legal, any arm of the law would be interested in making sure that a 13-year-old girl was not in a compromising position with an adult man. No. There was an Elon Musk post in which he said they should be ashamed of themselves. I don't think they have that capacity by the looks of things.
If we extrapolate nationally, the J report on Rotherham and other reports on Telford and Oxford there appear to have been upwards of 250,000 young white girls raped in this century, very largely by Muslim men. And given these girls are usually raped several times a day for years, so, my lords, what is the government's answer to the Chief Constable of Northumberland, of Northumbria, who has just said that there is every likelihood that these grooming gangs are operating in every one of our major cities? So, my lords, what is the government doing to prosecute those in authority who turned a blind eye to all this because they were afraid of being Islamophobic and so on? And what is it doing to compensate and help these victims mentally?
Now, I want to, make a point here. He's talking about the police being afraid of being Islamophobic. As I said, I don't think that's a factor. There's something else, some sort of corruption. Now, you may ask why these men did what they did, and I will put forward my theory, and my theory is that Islam has very strict rules about absolutely everything you can do in life. From the moment you get up in the morning till the moment you go to sleep at night, you have to follow a program that has been given to you by your religion. And I suspect that atrophies the self-control. You've got the laws, the rules, you follow those. When those rules are removed, you have no self-control. You're not used to controlling yourself. And these, for want of a better word, men, there was no control over them. They knew the police weren't going to control them. They knew the courts weren't going to control them. So they just let their imaginations run riot, and boy oh boy did their imaginations work overtime on how to torture these little girls, how to exert some sort of control and power over them. Because there was nothing controlling these men. They needed some boundaries, like children, like little children. And they weren't getting those boundaries. Yeah, that's my theory about, at least part of the reason for their inhuman behaviour. You can't even call it animal behaviour. Animals don't behave like they did. No, this was something else. A total lack of moral control. And that's because nobody was exerting this on them, and they lacked the ability to exert it upon themselves. That is my theory, that this is one of the factors in the problems that Muslim countries have in controlling themselves. They need a dictator at the top because they need somebody to tell them what to do all the time. That's the way their brains are wired. When you get attempts at democracy in Muslim countries, everything goes completely to pieces because the people themselves, I'm not saying every single one of them, but enough of them just don't have any concept of self-control. And so things go wrong very quickly when a dictator is removed from a country. That's where all the, especially America, who thinks that, you just take the dictator away and everything in the garden will be absolutely spiffing. No, there are people who cannot handle that sort of self-responsibility. Now, again, people referred to what they were doing because they were messing around with 11-year-old children, that this was paedophilia. Well, yeah, there may have been that aspect of it as well. But actually, my suspicion is it's because an 11-year-old girl is very vulnerable. She's easily manipulated. She's easy to push around. She's easy to threaten. And she has no credibility with the police, especially when she's been arrested by the police for being drunk and disorderly. So she was just a slapper with a conviction. Who's going to listen to her? Well, certainly not the police, even if they were inclined to. Now, another case, which is referred to as the Oxford cousin gang. And they were cousins. And look, I can't read this out aloud. I mean, it is beyond my imagination what they did to this girl who was 11 when they started doing it to her. But I will leave a link in the description. But this is, again, historical. It's being brought up here in this little compilation. I believe this is from 2019. I'm not entirely sure. It could be 2024. I don't know. But do you see a pattern? We get the news of this a couple of years after it happened. So it's like the authorities are telling us, well, it's not happening now. It did happen, but we're sorting it out now. And then a year or so later, there's something that happened a couple of years before that. We're not getting the arrests and the news about these things as they happen. This is another one from 2023, you see. So Police Scotland found at least 44 victims here, asylum seekers. So I'm showing you historical cases, but I am absolutely certain that there's a lot going on now. We just won't hear of them for a year or two. Well, I just thought you might be interested in this. I definitely think there's some collusion going on there with the police, with the press, with the courts, just to keep it down, let it dribble out. And meanwhile, of course, there are people like Tommy Robinson in jail. Didn't take them long to get him in jail, did it? Okay. Till next time, you can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.